everybody, my name is Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking to you about the books that I would like to read in the month of March. And in this TBR, I am making an attempt to be a little bit more realistic with the goals that I'm setting. I have been having a hard time reading physically and keeping up with my own lofty goals. Lately, I just haven't been in a super big reading mood. So despite that, I still have a lot of books on this TBR, to be honest, but I have high hopes for going forward into March, and I'm starting to feel like reading again. February, I don't know what happened. I just didn't feel like reading. I have a lot of life events going on in March as well. My brother is getting married, so I'm going to be kind of busy, which is totally fine, and I'm trying not to put pressure on myself. But of course, there are books that I really want to get to, and let's just see. I'm going to separate my TBR into priority reads and then books that I would like to get to if things are going well. And that list of books is actually going to be my middle grade March books. I really want to participate in middle grade March, but I just have a few other things on the docket first. And so if I get through my priority reads, I think I will at least pick up a few middle grade books. It is one of my favorite events on BookTube, and I do want to participate and support it. It's just this March might be a little busy, so we'll see. We're going to take a sip of our Earl Grey tea and then talk about books. So first off, I have a few carryover books from February that will be continuing on into March. And one of those is the Lent read-along that I am doing with Christy Lewis and Carla from Raised to Walk. And during Lent, we are reading through John Ploughman's Talks by C.H. Spurgeon. And this is a super easy read-along to participate in because we're doing a chapter really every other day. And the chapters are super short. It's really not a hard book to keep up with. And it's different sermons and faith-based talks that Spurgeon gave throughout his life. Spurgeon was a Christian Victorian minister, and so it has an old-timey kind of writing style, but he speaks to modern issues as well. A lot of the things he's talking about are still applicable, and I've personally just been gleaning a lot of wisdom and loving these. It is wonderful. It's not too late if you want to do this with us. We have an Instagram group where we are chatting about the different sermons that we're reading. If you want to participate in this, it's definitely not too late. It's such an easy read. It is like no skin off your back to read. It is fast. So if you want to participate, let me know. All through Lent, we are doing this. Another book that's carrying over through March is another read-along I'm participating in, and that is The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This has been a fascinating read so far. We are 50% of the way through about, and our live shows have been such rich and interesting discussions. Peg from the History Shelf, Codex Cantina, and Christy, we are all just really enjoying our discussions and talking about the many philosophical arguments that are brought up in this book. And it is absolutely a book that I think I would need to talk about with people in order for my own personal understanding. If you read this book on your own, not that you can't do it on your own, but it definitely helps to have some people to talk to. So it's not too late if you want to catch up. We are going to have two more live streams about this book. The next will be through the next, like the first 75% of the book, and then we'll have one at the end of the month where we will talk about the whole book. I'm actually liking this one more than I liked Crime and Punishment, which I really liked Crime and Punishment, so that's surprising me a bit. But I'm really liking this. And I have one more February carryover into March, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I have started this book and really enjoyed what I've read so far. I'm, maybe 100? Yeah, maybe a little less than 100 pages in at the moment. Addie is a character I really like. I have a little issue with something in this book, which I'll talk about later, but I am loving the writing style in this book. V.E. Schwab is really good at casting this atmosphere on her world, and it's such a mood. It's got like a, I don't know, like kind of, I don't want to say gothic, but it's got like a gothic vampire-y kind of feel, but there's not vampires in this book. But if I was trying to describe like what this book reminds me of, it's very like gothic to me. But that's probably inaccurate. I don't know if it's really gothic, if it could be considered a gothic style. This book is about a woman who has a curse on her, and when you talk to her, you will immediately forget about her existence the minute you're out of sight. So you'll have a conversation with her, and then you'll walk away, and then immediately forget what you were doing and who you were talking to. So no one can ever remember Addie LaRue. It is a curse on her life. It's very sad, and I'm just hoping maybe for good things for Addie in the future, but I don't know. That's kind of an intense curse to have, so we'll see. I'm hoping for a happy ending for her. I like her as a character, I really do. I picked this up as Michael Knipp's Patreon buddy read, and of course he is finished with it, and the month is ending, but I'm still going to read it, and I still want to talk to Michael about it and see what he thought of it. Another book that's a priority read for me is going to be John Adams by David McCullough. Ramsey from the channel Rajathon is doing a presidential read-along, and I so wanted to participate, and I so dropped the ball. I still haven't finished Washington. I'm still technically reading Washington, but I think I'm going to just be like picking through it throughout the year. But I don't want to get behind again. I do want to read John Adams, especially because I serendipitously found this in a used bookstore when I was there like a few weeks ago. And I was like, it's fate. It's here. I paid like $5 for it. And so it's a sign I need to read this with the read-along group. So I am making this a priority. I do want to read about John Adams. I feel like I know nothing about John Adams. I've heard that this is a great read, and this is a very famous biographer. People really like his works. Another one by him was 1776 that I know Ramsey also read and really enjoyed. So looking forward to this. Don't want to get behind. It's not quite as big as Washington, so I have hopes for myself. Another book I want to make a priority is Nightmare by Chad Nicholas, and he actually emailed me and wanted to know if I wanted a free copy of this, and I said, of course. And so I'm going to be doing a separate book review for this book. This is also the group pick for the new Shelf Space. It's like a sister channel. It's Shelf Published In, and I just love what they're doing. They're featuring a different independent author every month, and I just love that they're supporting independent writers, and I just want to be part of it. And so this is going to be my first read with that group as well. Check them out. I will link the Discord group. They have a Discord. They also have some reading plans posted. Like if you want to plan ahead a little bit, I think they have their April book up and maybe their May book up as well. So they're awesome. Check them out. I want to participate with this group. And so I'm going to be reading Nightmare. This is a priority for me. It is an ebook, and I'm not used to reading ebooks. I just don't read a lot of ebooks, but maybe it'll start me into an ebook phase in my life. We'll see. I'm excited to read another ebook again and see how I enjoy that like process of reading. I've heard great things about this book from Leslie from The Nerdy Narrative, and I think a few other people as well have finished this by now. But I have heard great things, and I'm very excited. I love spooky vibes. I love spooky books. It's been a while since I've read a horror book, like a true horror book, so I'm really looking forward to this. The last book that I'm calling my priority read in my priority stack is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, the first book. I am reading this with Laura, and her channel, I think, is Let's Get Fictional. I think she used to be Laura Pora, and then she changed her channel name, but I think it's Let's Get Fictional is her new channel name. And I've never buddy read with Laura before, so I'm excited to do this with her. This was on my 21 books to read in 2021, and she saw it, and she was like, hey, I want to reread that one. Can we do that together? And I was like, of course we can. Let's buddy read it. And so I'm excited that I'm going to get another book checked off of my list for my 21 books to read in 2021. This is the first in a series, definitely a booktube darling, and I've heard great things. I know lots of people are big fans of Ransom Riggs and this series in general, so I want to give it a go. It looks pretty neat. Unfortunately, I don't think it's middle grade, so I can't count it for middle grade March. Darn, I think it's young adult. I know really nothing about the premise, but that is a creepy, creepy cover. Is she levitating? I think she's levitating. Okay, are you ready for middle grade March picks? If I do magically get through all of those books in a timely manner, I have some middle grade March ideas. I certainly won't get through all of these middle grade March books. Maybe one, maybe two. Actually, definitely one, because one's an audiobook. And so I'm going to be listening to Echo on audio, and I can't remember the author right now, but I'll put a picture right here. I'm using this for the prompt of a silhouette on the cover. And I've heard that this audiobook is great and that it has music throughout. I guess a harmonica is like almost like a main character in this book almost. And I guess there's like beautiful harmonica music all the way throughout the audiobook. I'm excited to hear that. So I want to try this on audio. It is very highly recommended by Amanda at the Curly Reader. She loved the audio version. And so when I saw this book in her recommendation video, I knew that it was destiny. I want to listen to this book rather than read it because I've heard there's a musical element and I don't want to miss out on that. Another prompt for middle grade March is to read a book that has a travel or adventure feature in it. And for that, I would go with probably The Keeper of the Lost Cities. I bought this a long time ago at a used bookstore, and I've always wanted to start this series, but this is a sci-fi fantasy middle grade, and there's definitely an adventure involved. You can just, that whole cover just screams adventure. It's about 12-year-old Sophie Foster, who is a telepath, so she can hear the thoughts of everyone around her, and then she meets another boy who's also a telepath, and they go on an adventure. I've heard nothing but rave reviews about this series, so I so want to pick it up. It's kind of thick looking, but it's not actually that thick because the font is pretty big. So really want to get to this if I can. Another prompt for middle grade March is a fairy tale retelling. And for that, I would like to use The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. I've never tried a Shannon Hale book before. I've heard that she is a fantastic middle grade author. This is actually the first book in a series. And from what I understand, you don't have to maybe continue the series. This actually stands alone fairly well on its own, but there are subsequent books. This is a retelling of a Grimm's fairy tale story, so this would fit that prompt perfectly. I did find a signed copy. This was picked up in the same bookstore trip that I got John Adams, and I found a signed copy of this. Here, I'll show you. Right there. Shannon Hale. It's a nice copy. It's hardcover. It's a little bit beat up from the used bookstore, but it is signed, so that's really cool. Last March was the last time I picked up an installment of my Harry Potter Illustrated Edition. I read the Chamber of Secrets with this Illustrated Edition last March. I remember because we were just going on lockdown for COVID, and I remember I was reading this at the time, so it was like raining outside, we were locked down, and I was reading Chamber of Secrets, the illustrated version, and it was very cozy at the time, and it provided me with some comfort while we were trying to figure out what the heck was going on with the world. And so I haven't continued my reread in exactly a year, so I think it's time. I do want to continue my Harry Potter reread with my illustrated copy of Prisoner of Azkaban. I haven't actually read this copy yet, so I would love to go through and see all the beautiful pictures inside. This I would probably use for the prompt published in the decade you were born. I was born in the 90s, and so this was published in the 90s. I am a 90s kid, so it just makes sense that this would be my pick for this prompt. One more book that I want to share and a read-along that I want to shout out is The Miracle on Maple Hill. And this is a read-along that's being hosted by some of my very, 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 very favorite booktubers. It's a bunch of people. All my friends are reading this book. I want to read this book too, but I just don't know, guys. It's just a lot of books right now, and I don't know, so I'm not fully committing to this, but I don't know, we'll see. I would have to read an ebook copy, so depending on like how I'm feeling about reading ebooks. But this would be for the family element prompt, and it does look so sweet. This book looks wonderful, and while I hope I can get to it, I make no promises, but if I do end up being able to fulfill this prompt, I will definitely use this book for that prompt. You can let me know down in the comments, are you participating in Middle Grade March or any of these other read-alongs that I talked about today? What are you most excited to read in March? What is your heart telling you to read? I hope you're reading something wonderful, and until next time, bye-bye.